In mere minutes of intense combat near eastern Pokrovsk, Russian forces lost 2 T-90M tanks and 2 armored vehicles, along with an anti-tank Kornet crew. What strikes me as an analyst is the Ukrainian forces lost 0 armor in that engagement. The battle unfolded under severe electronic warfare conditions where tactical radio signals were useless and fiber-optic drones became the only viable eyes in the sky. This tactical outcome raises critical questions on the future of warfare. For the first time on record, advanced Western armor like the Leopard 2A6 and Abrams did not only survive, they seized control of the battle space. This localized skirmish seems minor compared to larger offensives, but what transpired in the fog near Donetsk has already captured the attention of military analysts across the globe. Our tactical assessments suggest this could mark the pivot point where Russian tank design begins falling behind the realities of modern combat. If our assessment holds true, it could reshape global military planning procurement. Investments and doctrines we have utilized for decades. The fundamental question for us is critical. Are we witnessing the dawn of an era where sensors and drones decide battles rather than heavy armor and heavy cannons? East of Pokrovsk, in Donetsk Oblast, a tense standoff unfolded under thick fog, and relentless electronic jamming that turned the morning into a blinding haze of friction and danger. Adversary forces pushed from 3 axes to squeeze the Ukrainian perimeter around towns like Murad, as their combined arms column advanced forward with clear tactical intent. A single T-90M took point, its low silhouette hugging the terrain, with 2 BMP-3 vehicles following to deploying their mechanized infantry squad, who dispersed into skirmish lines. Anti-tank teams with Kornet missiles waited in ambush along the hedge, ready to strike any exposed flank. This maneuver was designed to probe the rail line and isolate the nearby sector, trapping the defenders, forcing them into a fatal funnel where all escape corridors quickly closed. Inside, the T-90M crews gripped their controls as the diesel engine hummed, actively scanning for threats, using advanced thermal imaging systems, a distinct tactical edge. But Ukrainian commanders rejected static defense. They prepared a mobile counter-strategy. They constructed a layered defense in depth, integrating armor with agile reconnaissance. A Leopard 2, a 6 call sign, Lynx 2, occupied a hull-down position behind a low berm, exposing only its turret to minimize its visual profile. Nearby, an M1 Abrams call sign, Bison 3, deployed from a drainage, ditch its gas turbine whining as it moved into a copse of trees for interlocking fields of fire. Bradley infantry fighting vehicles held the reserve, their 25mm chain. Guns swept the avenues of approach, while dismounted infantry squads waited with Javelin anti-tank missiles ready. Their real tactical advantage came from the skies, where fiber-optic FPV drones loitered silently above their operators, receiving jam-resistant video feeds from the battlefield. Russian electronic warfare units to the east began jamming the local spectrum. We silenced the enemy's tactical spectrum, killing the chatter that once flowed between transmitters. Orders degrade to desperate whispers over hardwired landlines, and the network dies, save for raspy voices confirming coordinates in code. AT-90M advances, regardless its explosive reactive armor glinting dully as it slews its turret, sniffing for wind shifts, followed by troop carriers churning mud to slush. Infantry dismounts in frantic rushes, seeking illusions of cover in frozen grass and ruined structures. But infrared heat from their bodies betrays them to monitors. Our gunners in Leopard 2s detect the initial signatures. A bright silhouette idling behind an earthen berm that means danger. An Abrams loader checks the blow-off, panels a critical drill, ensuring ammunition stays sealed behind blast doors while the driver idles at 1500 RPM ready to evade the incoming anti-tank fire. The electronic warfare blanket thickens, yet fiber lines, snaked through culverts, deliver clear feeds of hostile movements, turning invisible threats into targets etched in white hot. As engagement nears the sector, stirs with the rumble of engines and the tense crackle of failing comms, locking both forces in a duel of calculated risks. The lead vehicle peeks out its underside, glowing like fire on Leopard 2 optics, and our gunner stabilizes his aim with steady hands. Enemy mortars probe the air in retaliation, their thuds echoing off the misty tree line that curls like a noose around the farm road. Friendly infantry edges forward in Stugna teams stood ready in pairs, while our Bradleys rev to support, suppressing any targets. If things turned hot, the enemy T-90M felt it too, traversing its main gun toward a whisper kind of movement, but the thick fog scrambled their tactical sensors. Our scouts bypassed this threat and countered their electronic warfare by running thin fiber optic lines through subterranean culverts, routing crystal clear intelligence directly into our tanks. These secure physical lines bypassed the massive electronic jamming, where enemy transmitters rendered all wireless signals useless, forcing unlinked drones to fall from the sky. Inside our Leopard, 2 thermal displays glowed with clean, tactical video, exposing the sector in stark layers of cold shadow and white-hot targets. Our vehicle commander adjusted his panoramic optics, tracking faint signatures growing clearer by the second, while our M1 crew monitored the exact same feed on their independent thermal viewer. Both sides field-tested new technologies, but our fiber optic system secured a decisive tactical edge, giving operators stable control of attack drones and static cameras even during total radio silence at the front. This feed exposed the entire enemy advance, showing hot engine blocks and troops grouping in shallow, vulnerable cover. Our Leopard gunner adjusted calmly, placing his reticle on the underbelly of the lead enemy, BMP, as it crawled forward. Their crew believed their onboard jammers protected them blind to our silent network had already mapped their positions with absolute tactical precision. With targets acquired, our armored units shifted into position. The Leopard settled deeper behind the berm, exposing only its turret, while our Abrams mirrored this tactic from its wooded ambush point. Our tethered FPV drone hovered, feeding real-time feeds and tracking enemy troop, movement hidden from ground sightlines. Hostiles scattered the moment our first thermal lock triggered warning alerts, but their BMP panicked into open ground. Our Leopard fired a single controlled shot, the L-55 gun thundering as our heavy round slammed the BMP's flank. Flames erupted instantly, devouring the vehicle in smoke and molten metal. The second BMP swerved desperately toward cover, but our cable-fed optics betrayed their escape. Our Abrams commander issued a brief order and machine gun fire chased infantry fleeing from the burning wreckage. Seconds later, a sabot round from our Leopard struck the remaining vehicle, tearing through its front armor and detonating it in a violent arc of debris. Our infantry advanced with javelins ready, using the feed to track targets and secure ground while enemy troops retreated under mortar fire. When the firing faded, we saw a ruined battlefield. The enemy's armored probe had collapsed before even closing distance undone, not by brute force, but by a network built to see. Through conflict, as our troops recovered their lines and dissolved back into the fog, one strategic question lingered like an echo. Artillery. When communication networks fail us tomorrow, will our front lines resemble historic trenches, but now patrolled by wired robotic platforms rather than infantry? Our Leopard 2 and Abrams M1 converted this obscured engagement zone into a shooting gallery, matching pure devastation with precise timing, leaving hostile armor no opportunity to react. The Leopard's L5 smoothbore cannon fired first, unleashing an armor-piercing sabot round that maintained a flat trajectory even as our vehicle negotiated heavily broken terrain. Its stabilized barrel and advanced suspension allowed our gunner to keep targets locked beyond 2 kilometers. Consequently, the tungsten penetrator struck exactly where our thermal imaging indicated, directly under the lead BMP's turret. Armor flashed white hot for a microsecond. Next, the hostile transport detonated a rolling fireball, instantly consuming the entire crew, compartment violently shearing the heavy turret 20 meters away. Shortly after our Abrams M1 joined the fight, its 120mm cannon firing a phi kinetic penetrator that sliced through a second target's glacis plate like a hot knife through warm butter. The transport's rear escape hatches buckled as ignited propellant sprayed the terrain in long patterns, while dazed survivors scrambled into killing zones already targeted by our coaxial machine guns. Our Abrams commander kept his eyes fixed on his thermal panoramic sight scanning for the next threat. Even while our main gun recoiled and the crew loader slammed to another round in, that independent optical system sits high on the turret, rotating 360 degrees, so the commander identifies threats while our gunner remains focused on the primary target. I observed the Leopard crew operate identically. Their commander hunted targets with his panoramic sight, while his gunner neutralized the threat below combined. Both platforms laid down precision fire downrange faster than the Russian column could disperse, turning their assault into a chaotic rout where infantry scrambled from burning steel directly into pre-planned kill zones. These troops faced the absolute nightmare. Every mechanized soldier dreads abandoning their vehicles under fire, with absolutely nowhere to run. I saw some sprint toward a ruin, but the Abrams turret tracked them smoothly. The coaxial machine gun fired short controlled bursts that dropped targets in mid-stride. I watched the Leopard pivot quickly, laying its main gun on a third vehicle attempting to retreat, and another sabot flashed across the field to shatter that hope with one thunderclap. Within 90 seconds, the entire enemy escort element was completely destroyed, leaving the T-90M isolated and vulnerable on terrain once deemed safe. What makes these Western platforms so survivable is their advanced ammunition storage design, entirely away from the crew. The Abrams stows its ready rounds in a sealed compartment behind the turret underneath heavy blow-off panels, engineered to direct any blast upward into the sky, bypassing the fighting compartment. When penetration occurs, our crews usually survive walking away intact. This is documented constantly on helmet camera, footage emerging from this conflict. The Leopard utilizes identical doctrine with reinforced armor around the stowage. Thus, tactically, a mobility kill rarely becomes a crew kill. The Russian vanguard shattered against superior fire control, advanced optics and hulls, engineered specifically to protect the crew. The lead T-90M crossed the low-crest hunting targets like a predator. The defending Leopard 2A6 responded before the enemy commander could even traverse his tour to engage. The long L-55 barrel flashed once, piercing the gray morning fog, and the DM-63 sabot round punched through the weak seam right below the gun mantlet, where the armor is weakest. Lethal spall and overpressure flooded the crew cabin, severing internal electronics and destroying critical targeting optics in a heartbeat. The enemy armor shuddered tracks, spinning wildly as the driver attempted to retreat, but the damage was done. The asset sat paralyzed its turret, spinning blindly while heavy smoke poured from the hatches. The Abrams M1 seized the initiative, launching a depleted uranium sabot dart, screaming across the field. Impact occurred on the left flank, behind the active defense panels, blowing the brick matrix outward in the ring of localized fire, continuing its trajectory until it breached the internal carousel autoloader beneath the turret compartment. A surviving enemy crewman forced his hatch open and scrambled out, waving his hands. But the engagement was not yet over. A Bradley emerged from the woodline, advancing rapidly its 25mm chain gun, already cycling rounds. Up, our gunner swept a devastating burst across the enemy vehicle's turret roof, shattering the primary optics and neutralizing the laser rangefinder entirely. Into twisted slag, molten sparks showered the turret dome like embers, rendering the hostile armor tactically blind. The turret traverse are stalled completely, while the crew inside panicked over severed internal comms entirely. Our Bradley sustained heavy autocannon fire until the enemy T-90M was neutralized. A 60-ton tactical liability in this open sector. Then target priorities shifted. A hostile Cornet, team masked, 800 meters away, launched an anti-tank guided missile low and fast toward our Abrams. Its thermal trail cut through the drifting obscuration, missing the turret by inches, before detonating against a ruined farm, outbuilding, turning the structure into a fireball. Our infantry on the net quickly relayed to the coordinate data with absolute tactical discipline. Within seconds, a Stugna P crew acquired the target locked on and fired a top attack guided weapon that lofted high before diving directly onto the enemy coordinates. The kinetic detonation eliminated the threat and its crew in a single blast. Simultaneously, our supporting artillery batteries fired. Rapid 3-round fire missions to neutralize any hostile forces attempting to regroup. With the primary threat eliminated, tactical focus returned to the disabled target. The commander hatch opened, and 3 surviving crewmen bailed out, coughing and fleeing from their burning asset. They barely made 10 paces. A cheap FPV strike drone guided by fiber-optic wire to bypass hostile jamming descended from the low cloud cover like a hawk and slipped directly through the open commander hatch. 2.6 kilograms of shaped charge detonated directly over the ready rack. Flames erupted from every single opening simultaneously, pouring from the barrel, blasting through the driver's hatch and venting out the turret roof like a dragon, spitting fire. The armor became a torch, its turret seizing instantly while the hull glowed dull red from internal heat. A second T-90M breached the tree line to the south, its engine roaring at full power, attempting a classic ridgeline sprint to flank the Leopard's blind sector. The driver utilized the reverse slope, exposing only a fraction of turret roof. While their gunner scanned for a viable engagement window, enemy commanders expected this flank maneuver to seize the initiative, catching Western armor exposed and punching a breach through the defensive line before dawn turned disastrous. That armor pushed along the hedgerows, chewing frozen earth, its turret, offset prepared to traverse left. Then, as the Leopard's hull emerged, a fiber-optic FPV drone, guided by the unjammable tether that neutralized their escorts, broke from its holding pattern, dropping over the fields. The operator sat in a ditch 5, 100 meters back, hands steady on controls, analyzing the feed as the weapon system skimmed treetops and rapidly dove on the moving target. Tactical jammers failed completely. The physical fiber, trailing behind the drone, fed uninterrupted telemetry directly to the console. The hostile crew detected threat too late. Their commander ordered immediate, evasive reverse, but 60 tons cannot overcome inertia. The lethal payload slipped under the barrel, banked hard and penetrated the gap between turret and hull where the tooling armor is thinnest. The shape charge detonated with a flat crack, echoing across the tactical bowl. Overpressure slammed upward, blowing every hatch wide open like a tin can, and sending a column of flame punching through the roof cage. Carousel ammunition cooked off immediately, detonating in rapid chain bursts, gutting the internal fighting compartment into a furnace. The turret seized mid-traverse barrel, sagging toward the dirt as fire, vented from the driver's hatch, and even the bore evacuator. The armor rolled another 10 meters on momentum, before colliding with a birch tree and stopping forever. A smoking tactical monument on the edge of the field. Tactical silence fell for 3 heartbeats, broken only by the hiss of blistering paint, and the distant thuds of retreating enemy forces. Our Abrams commander simply reported lane, cold. The Leopard gunner then answered with a quiet confirmed. Bradleys reversed into tactical cover. Infantry squads advanced in short bounds to and secure the sector, while fiber cables reeled back in like fishing line after the phenol cast. No movement on the hostile side except scattered survivors retreating toward the rear. As the smokescreen finally thinned, the battle damage assessment was brutal. 2 T-90M hulls sat ruined, their turrets thrown, crews dead. 2 BMP-3s lay gutted beside a supply fuel truck, now reduced to charred skeletal steel. The Cornet team was neutralized, and Russian 2 forces broke, retreating in scattered elements, abandoning weapons and gear in the mud. For our side, the combat tally, we stayed clean, 0 assets lost. Just scorched paint on 1 Abrams skirt, some empty smoke, grenade launchers, and a pile of spent sabot casings left in our hull, down fighting positions. The Abrams turbines wind down to a slow idle. Our Leopard diesel ticked as it cooled. My crews, swapping water bottles, and dark jokes over the comms. The rail line remained secure. Pokrovsk still breathed. Just 2 Western tanks and a few cheap expendable drones had just shattered millions in enemy armor before breakfast. One critical question remains for us. If every anti-tank missile is easily jammed, do cheap wired drones become the ultimate armor-killing threat? Our ambush at Pokrovsk ripped the veil off what modern warfare really demands today. Tanks are no longer the undisputed rulers of the battlefield. 2 enemy T-90M platforms, their most advanced, were destroyed, despite deep layers of explosive reactive armor. To me, this proves even the most heavily armored assets are vulnerable when networked sensors and electronic warfare fully dominate the battle space. This engagement was more than a local skirmish. It is a tactical warning for any military placing blind faith in raw armor and firepower alone. True tactical dominance relies on total integration. We must combine precision, sensors, fiber-optic drones, and tight infantry coordination to control the ground without ever exposing a single platform to unnecessary risk. For commanders clinging to legacy Soviet Tactics. The decision is clear. Adapt now or face absolute obsolescence. The future of warfare is no longer about who fields the biggest gun or heaviest armor. The future belongs to commanders who can weaponize technology unmanned, platforms, and joint crews into a lethal, synchronized fist. The tactical reality is this. On future battlefields, can armor survive, or will autonomous networks and integrated doctrines dominate the field? If this briefing changed your perspective, share this with fellow strategists and subscribe to Military Force for further intelligence on the hard realities of